All right, I'm here with Luke of Luke Reviews for a very special live stream. This past weekend was San Diego Comic-Con. Marvel said they were going to come to play, and man, they did not disappoint. This was probably their biggest Comic-Con panel since the last kind of official, like, big in-person Comic-Con panel with no weird COVID regulations or anything like that. Since 2019, they had a lot of announcements. We got a lot to get through. So, Luke, you got anything to say before we get this started?
Let's just get to it before they announce another phase or two.
They might. They might. All of this and more on tonight's very special episode of the Talkin TV podcast. What's up, guys? We are here for a very special Tuesday night emergency stream. It was the soonest that we could get going after all of the big announcements that were announced this past weekend at San Diego Comic-Con. I haven't done one of these in a while. Probably the last time that I did one of these was back in November of 2020 when Warner Brothers announced that they would be dropping all their movies day and date on HBO Max. I did that with Alex of Alex Reviews. Different Alex from the current Alex Reviews. It was a different one. He hasn't been on YouTube in a while. I miss it. But I'm here with Luke of Luke Reviews. And Luke, before we get this started, I mean, Marvel said that they were going to have a lot of stuff that they were going to drop at Comic-Con. You know, I know a lot of people with these last couple of movies, particularly since the release of Thor: Love and Thunder, they were starting to wonder. They're like, okay, now that we're past Endgame, where is this going? We're about a year and a half into, new Marvel. Everyone was super happy when they came back in 2021, but we're a year and a half into this new experiment. And so people were definitely kind of starting to get the sense of it's like, okay, we want to know where this is going. You know, we're used to kind of being led in the one direction by Marvel. We needed to get that. And so what were you expecting going in before they made all these announcements?
I think the Avengers movies were the main thing that we would get a name for that. I didn't expect quite exactly what we got. I mean, of course, we found out a day before through the trademark filing things, which was a bit of a spoiler, but in terms of sort of unknown projects, it was a little less than I expected, but I think they're still saving some for D23, which is in like 6 weeks.
I don't think D23 is until September, I'm pretty sure.
Yeah, that's 6 weeks.
Oh wait, really? Oh my God, you're right. I'm math. This is why you're the engineer, and I'm not, because I can't even do basic math. Yeah.
We just got some confirmations, I guess, some more concrete dates. We don't know if they'll stick. World's always changing, but some sort of things that were announced, like Thunderbolts, had been announced, but it haven't been announced. So we just got a few of those.
Yeah, we didn't necessarily learn anything, I'd say, that people hadn't already guessed or that hadn't already been like kind of pre-led to, for lack of a better word. Like, we knew Blade was coming, we knew Fantastic Four was coming. Half the movies that they announced already had release dates, so like we already knew the release, the three movies that they were going to release in 2023 being Ant-Man and the Wasp: Quantumania, Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 3, and the Marvels, and then Blade obviously being announced on top of that. So for me, at least, I can say that a few of the biggest surprises that came out of it, number one, the confirmation that Black Panther: Wakanda Forever would actually be ending Phase 4. We know that Marvel kind of likes to, as we saw with the first three phases of the Infinity Saga, we saw that like they kind of like to structure all their movies like acts, where Act 1 was Phase 1 was Act 1, Phase 2 was Act 2, and then Phase 3 is kind of Act 3, and you can see that they're starting to structure that kind of similarly, as far as 4, 5, and 6 of being the kind of beginning, middle, and end of what we now know has come to be known as officially the Multiverse Saga, that's going to cap off with Kang Dynasty and Secret Wars, as was revealed in 2025. And so, so that was one thing. The other big thing, obviously, in addition to all the release dates, was probably the fact that we're going to get 2 Avengers movies in 1 year, which is pretty big. They haven't done that one yet, And I think Feige actually did a pretty good job of all, Feige, again, he loves to be the center of attention. It helps being the most powerful man in Hollywood. But the biggest thing that I took away from like kind of his behind the scenes interviews that I thought was actually really interesting is the fact of where with the first 3 phases, he would basically say that whenever for the most part, they had a lot more time with a lot less projects. So they would have a lot more of the individual movies be like kind of more solo focused movies, and then they would kind of have the Avengers be the cap off team up movies. But now that they've got the Disney Plus shows on top of the movies, and they've got a lot more products that they're putting out in a lot less time, it basically causes for like every other project to be like a low-key team-up movie. And people have been saying that. People have been commenting on that since the beginning. You know, Spider-Man No Way Home, Multiverse of Madness, Thor Love and Thunder, the upcoming, obviously, Wakanda Forever, all the different TV shows. They all are kind of like low-key team-up movies where we're getting like at least 2 or 3 like big-name characters that we're already familiar with in all these properties. So he said it would make sense for kind of the Avengers movies, which has kind of become like the tentpole, everybody getting together movies, would work better as a cap-off for the whole next saga as opposed to capping off each phase. But I think without further ado, let's break it down. So just to give you guys an idea of what we're looking at here, I haven't done one of these in a while. What's it called? Where are you? Hang on. I haven't done one of these in a while.
The old screen share.
Yep, the old screen share, exactly. There we go. Yeah, I haven't done one of these in a while, but as you guys can see here, oh wow, there goes the schedule, of course. But yeah, that is, if you guys can see in the right hand corner, I don't know why it's not letting me blow this up, but yeah, we've got a lot. So we've got a lot. That is the entire Phase 5 slate that was revealed at Comic-Con this past year, starting with, obviously, Ant-Man and the Wasp: Quantumania, February of 2023, then followed shortly after by Secret Invasion in the spring, Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 3, May of 2023, Echo, and Loki Season 2, that summer of 2023, The Marvels, July of 2023, Blade, that was the biggest thing announced, November of 2023, Ironheart in fall of 2023, then the retitled Agatha Coven of Chaos in winter of 2023 into spring of 2024. Then kicking off 2024, we will have Daredevil, Born Again, the reboot / continuation of the Netflix show in spring of 2024. And then capping off Phase 5 will be Captain America, New World Order, directed by Julius Ona, in spring of 2024. And then capping off the phase will be the Thunderbolts, which will be in July of 2024. Now, what's really interesting about that is that this is going to be the first time where we actually have a shift of phases in one calendar year. So previously, just to give you guys a little bit of insight into, for all of the 5 people who haven't been keeping track of the MCU religiously over the last couple of years, famously, the biggest thing is that they would always cap a phase off after one calendar year. Phase 1 famously capped off with the Avengers in 2012 before resuming with Iron Man 3 the following year in 2013. Phase 2 capped off with Ant-Man in 2015 before resuming the following year with Captain America Civil War in 2016. And Phase 3 ended with Spider-Man Far From Home in 2019 before obviously we would have no more Marvel content for the next 18 months before the return of WandaVision in 2021. So what's interesting about that as well is Thunderbolts is capping off Phase 5 and July of 2024. But if you guys will notice, let me see if I can find a picture of Phase 6 here. Probably going to have to search that up. But they also announced a few projects that will be announced in Phase 6, which is that it would famously be kicking off movie-wise. We definitely can assume that there will be a lot of other projects that are announced for the rest of 2024 in between the 3 properties that they announced, or the 4 properties, I should say, that they announced for it. But that Fantastic Four would be kicking off Phase 6 in November of 2024, which, like I said, will be the first time that Marvel has shifted phases midway through the year. So that already shows that, like, again, so this whole idea of people kind of getting sick of Marvel, there being too many projects per year, they're not slowing down with that anytime soon. They pulled back slightly this year, just enough, like just barely enough. Like we went from we had 9 Marvel releases last year between Disney Plus and theaters, and we went to roughly, let me do the math here. I mean, if you count the I Am Groot, the Guardians of the Galaxy holiday special that's coming out at the end of the year, and the shorts, we really only went down to, like, I would say like 7 or 8 between Moon Knight, Multiverse of Madness, Love and Thunder, Miss Marvel, She-Hulk, Black Panther, which obviously have yet to come out. So yeah, so roughly 6. So definitely a little bit more palatable, a little bit more space in between things. So they obviously kicked off a few more with a few more trailers for some of the things that have yet to come out. We got a new She-Hulk trailer I mean, there's really not too much to talk about here. It basically is once again just kind of confirming everything that people already knew. It's gonna be kind of be more lighthearted, lot more like sitcom-y. It's gonna be probably more so in the nature vein of WandaVision, at least when it first started out, before it kind of shifted and twisted. The bad CG, it's still there. Obviously, and obviously, we have also have the point of the Marvel CG artists coming out and finally getting a little bit of vocalization behind that. We can talk about that a bit, but I mean, I don't know, Luke, is like the anticipation for She-Hulk really there at all? Like my whole thing with it is like, it's one of those things. It's probably the first Marvel thing. It's weird how it kind of goes together with Miss Marvel, where Miss Marvel just looked just straight up not at all good, and I just had no desire to watch that at all. Famously, Miss Marvel is actually the first Marvel property that I have not watched since phase one since the first Iron Man. But She-Hulk is one of those things where I'm like, this looks god awful, but it also kind of looks slightly entertaining in the sense of where it's like, I have my fair share of shows that I like watching. I know they're bad, but I still enjoy watching them. It doesn't happen too often, but when it does, I can usually get some really good enjoyment out of there. So I don't know. Like, what is your anticipation level for She-Hulk, if at all?
Well, it wasn't high, but then this trailer came out and it convinced me a little more. Like, oh, this could be fun. And honestly, I wasn't going to watch it, but then they announced Secret Wars and the other one.
Yeah, and
And
you're like, oh, great. So now every one of these characters is going to be here.
and I'm a bit of a completionist, and if I don't watch everything leading up to those two Avengers movies, it just won't work. I have to watch everything. But this is how they get me, right? They show me like, ooh, at the end of the tunnel, there's two of these two big movies, and you'll be rewarded
Yeah.
for watching everything up until now. So, okay, Feige, I will watch your shows.
He knows what he's doing, man. He's the most powerful man in Hollywood for a reason. He knows what he's doing. His strategy, his structure works. I will say that, like, I'm not going to say that I necessarily know if I'm going to go along with that strategy, only because just based off prior experience, it's kind of funny when people ask me, like, oh, like, what's the best way to watch the MCU if I don't want to watch every movie, because I'll admit, you don't necessarily need to watch every movie as far as knowing the plot wise. So I kind of give them like a basic blueprint that probably involves like watching about half the movies, because at least for my money, I'm like, I don't think you need to watch if we're just talking about the Infinity Saga, I don't think you really need to watch the Iron Man sequels. You don't really need to watch any of the Spider-Man movies aside from the first one, and even that you really don't, because he's introduced in Homecoming and he's introduced in Civil War, I mean, and his movies really aren't that super important. And few of the other origin movies I don't think are necessarily essential. I like the Ant-Man movies. They're not super essential, So it's like, yeah, and same with Captain Marvel. Like Captain Marvel, it's like you can go with that watching. So it's like, you don't necessarily need to watch everything. And I can definitely say that just because I've become so used to the MCU and what they give me now and kind of what I know I like, and just based off the fact that I know that I'm not going to be lost by not watching something just because the online discourse for it is so strong. I'm like, okay, I'm never really going to feel totally lost. I definitely don't feel like I need to watch everything. Like I didn't feel the need to watch Miss Marvel. There are a couple things on here that I don't know if I'm going to feel the need to watch them if I don't think they look particularly good. But we'll get into that as we go further on down the list of the announcements. She-Hulk, like I said, my thoughts on it have changed from I was super anticipating it to, wow, that CG is awful, but this looks so terrible, and I might just watch it from like a so bad it's good entertainment standpoint to, okay, I'll watch it. It looks like a fun waste of time sitcom. I have a feeling it'll be fun, So that's kind of where my thoughts on She-Hulk are. But I mean, that was just the precursor to probably, I would say, the first of like the big four announcements. With the big four takeaway, I can say, or it's a Black Panther, Ant-Man, Guardians, and then obviously the Avengers announcement that capped it off, which, I mean, Black Panther, Wakanda Forever. Like, again, we've been asking it. We've been wondering it. We've been like, okay, how are they going to pull this off without Chadwick? Chadwick was such a revelation, such a quintessential part of the MCU additions in phase 3. Losing him in 2020 was one of the biggest blows, not just to the MCU, but just to the media landscape in general, just for what he brought. And so naturally, people were wondering, they're like, how are they going to make this work without him? And I think, once again, if there's nothing else, if he has proved nothing else by this point, he is delivered. Because for me, at least, I mean, I felt like we were personally robbed of a Guardians 3, but as far as I'm concerned, this trailer won over the entire Comic-Con. Like, I watched it when it dropped, and I was spellbound by it. Like, just completely and totally spellbound by it. What were your thoughts on the trailer?
I find myself rewatching it almost every day, I guess. People I know keep rewatching it as well. They just love the transition from the one song to the Kendrick song,
Yeah.
like stuff, everything like that. People saying it out avatared the Avatar 2 trailer, which I
Yeah.
thought was great. And it just looks very grand. Uh, sure, it will still have those MCU traits, but it looks like it's really committed to having that kind of a tribute feel to it. And of course, everyone was speculating what should they have done? Should they have recast?
Right.
Should they have not recast? And
Right.
then they chose not to recast. We'll see if that ultimately was the best decision they could make. I don't think there is one
Right.
correct decision to be
Exactly.
made. But yeah, what I find most reflective of what this movie is gonna be is the logo, how big Wakanda Forever is, and how small Black Panther is. It really
Yeah.
will be like an ensemble film. There won't be one standout lead, and I don't know. It's just gonna be like a Wakanda movie, I guess. Not however that would work.
Yeah, obviously that was one of the biggest takeaways from the first Black Panther. The fact that the ensemble cast around T'Challa was introduced in that movie. Obviously, Denai Guerrero as Okoye, Letitia Wright as his sister Shuri, Angela Bassett as his mother Ramonda, Lupita Nyong'o as his lover Nakia, Winston Duke as M'Baku. Like every one of those guys just had such a personality and contributed to that world so well. It definitely, obviously, what was always going to lend itself best to being an ensemble feature. Obviously, they never could have predicted that this was going to happen, considering just how well he hid the illness. But I definitely think that regardless of what everyone's personal thoughts are, I think that they made the best of it. And I just, it was just, oh my God, like I can't get over it. Like if nothing else, this just proves that everyone was wondering like if Coogler was even going to be able to bring the same steam that he brought to the first movie, since that first movie was just such a revelation. Outside of the MCU just being like such this big cultural landmark event film for so many different reasons. And I honestly have to say, I think he may have topped it. Again, it's only a trailer. We have yet to see the actual movie, but I mean, he really, really may have topped it. We got a couple shots of the new additions here, obviously, famously confirming Tena Huerta coming in as Namor, the Submariner. Really, really hoping that they don't waste him in just a quick one-off part. Ruri Williams as Dominique Thorne, Ironheart. Michaela Coel's part as I believe she is going to be kind of taking over as one of the new Dora Milaje figures. And obviously the shot at the end of somebody who we can assume is Shuri, just based on her figure in the new Black Panther outfit. And famously also, I don't know if you noticed, but obviously there's some gold on that outfit as well. So it looks like she's going to be taking some more of Killmonger. Obviously, I've done a little bit of reading as far as the some of the leaked plot threads go. Some speculation, if you will. They say that she does take over as the Black Panther and that she visits the I forgot what they called it, the spirit world after the fact, trying to look for T'Challa, but she ends up meeting Killmonger there, which obviously hopefully will mean that Michael B. Jordan does end up in this movie. And the big thing, even though obviously they haven't announced it yet, there's been nothing revealed yet, but I mean, a lot of stuff online has come out that we are, in addition to getting Namor, obviously, who will be the main antagonistic force in this movie, we are also going to be getting Doctor Doom in this movie. What are your thoughts on that? And also, if you may, you got any ideas as to who might be playing him?
I did not know that there was supposed Doctor Doom in this.
Yeah, there's been a lot of like leaked stuff over the last couple months about the fact that we're probably not going to get him in the movie, but definitely in a post-credit scene.
That's interesting. Doctor Doom. Really, I don't know much about him. I just know that he's from Latvia. So why don't you just make him from Latvia?
Yeah, have to take that up with Stan Lee, man.
Put us on the map. Yeah, I also think it's Shuri. Like I saw TikToks. You just made me laugh. Imagine it's Walter White.
Oh, that reminds me of another meme that I saw. I just shared it on my Facebook yesterday. It was one where my housemate shared it. It's like Robert Downey Jr. back in the MCU as T'Challa, but it's him from Tropic Thunder, his face CG'd on top of it. Oh man, the lowdown things that make us laugh. But yeah, so my fan casting is, I'm like, look, he's been in every Disney property now. Just make I could very much easily see it being Giancarlo Esposito. Will it be him? Who knows? But I could definitely see it being him. He plays a bad guy so well. He's already in Star Wars. He's still such a force on Better Call Saul. I'm like, just put him in Marvel already. It's long past time. You may as well. But like I said, it looks amazing. It looks like an absolute revelation. It looks like they're going to be honoring Chadwick in the best way possible. Like I said, the whole movie is going to be a tribute. Obviously, they're clearly going to make T'Challa's death in the film a big part of the film. in and of itself, and that so they're going to kind of use that as a conclusory phase and kind of them transitioning it into more of like this piece about Wakanda as a whole rather than just being about T'Challa the character. I think is going to be really interesting, especially since obviously T'Challa, it might be breaking new ground as far as from the comics, considering that T'Challa is still very much alive and well in the comic book source material. So like I said, they definitely delivered, they nailed it, and I can't wait to see what the movie's going to bring come November. Now we move on to phase 5 with the first big thing, something that probably I don't think anybody was expecting to be as big as it was, but I mean they've been hinting at this for a while, probably since like I don't remember if it was back in 2019 or in 2021 that they officially announced that Quantumania would be the name of the third Ant-Man movie, and that Kang the Conqueror would be appearing in it. But I mean, we got a lot in the trailer that was unfortunately put at Comic-Con. It was leaked online. I don't know if you got a chance to watch it. It was in pretty bad quality, but some big things, obviously. We got our first look at Catherine Newton, who famously replaced Emma Furman, who portrayed the adult version of Cassie Lang from Endgame. We apparently get a shot of her in her full Ant-Man suit. We also get official confirmation that Bill Murray will be in the film. What his role is going to be, who knows, but I've heard that he's going to be playing some figure that Janet encountered in the quantum realm, but that they're going to have to go back into at some point, at some capacity. I believe that some of the plot centers around Cassie being kidnapped and brought into the quantum realm and them having to go in and save her. I've heard that some other plot elements is that Scott Lang is apparently going to be working on a book. And obviously the big announcement, obviously Jonathan Majors surprised everyone at Comic-Con, is that we're officially going to be getting Jonathan Majors in his first like official role as Kang the Conqueror. Obviously we saw him in the final episode of Loki this past year, but he was I don't remember what the title that he gave himself is, but he was a Kang variant. But now we're officially going to be getting like a full-on version of Kang in this film. So what are your thoughts? Did you think that Ant-Man and the Wasp Quantumania was going to be as big as it was? Because Ant-Man has been like, it's always been like kind of the little engine that could. It's always been there in the back burner. And like nobody's really taking it seriously, but like they've low-key kind of like evolved into becoming important films because Ant-Man and the Wasp introduced the quantum realm, which then became their tool to save the world in Endgame, you know? And now Quantumania kicking off is a kickoff film for phase 5 and is now going to be like the first film where we actually get the setup for somebody who's going to be one of the 2 villains that we get in the final 2 Avengers films to cap off phase 6. So
yeah, I think the main draw is that this is for Kang's first big appearance. So I guess it will be a different version, or that it'll be a different version of him every time we see him.
Right.
So you can't think of this character as linear. So that's quite exciting. I hope they make each one somewhat unique. Like, you know, maybe one's dark, one's a bit funnier. And MODOK is in this movie as well.
That's right, as well. MODOK, I forgot, is going to be in this film as well. I wonder to what capacity and who will be playing him, if anything.
Is that Corey Stroll?
Oh, that's right, because they did say the Yellow Jacket was going to be back in this film as well. But, you know, but obviously, you know, since he obviously got shrunk and microized into the quantum realm at the end of the first film, so they could have, he could be MODOK. That's interesting. I completely forgot about that. But, you know, I like your point that you brought up about Kang, though, since obviously, again, the thing that was so interesting as far as how Kang was set up is the fact that it was very obviously, you know, deliberate them introducing him in Loki, and the reason why the death of his variant in Loki is the one that kind of reestablishes his presence in the multiverse is the fact that Kang is a multiversal villain. You know, they even said they're like, yeah, we need to come up with a different villain that's going to be different from Thanos, and Kang is that in the sense of he's not this big, he's not like this physical force that they have to overcome. He's rather different in the sense of it doesn't matter how many times, he's almost in a sense like kind of Freddy Krueger-esque in that sense as far as how they're playing around with the different versions of him across the multiverse, in that it doesn't matter how many versions of him you kill, there's always going to be another one that pops up around the corner. And I think that's kind of interesting. And I think if they do that right, it could be really interesting, especially since Jonathan Majors' performance in that final episode of Loki was so different and so unique that I think I've seen anything in the multiverse before, just in the Marvel verse before. And like I said, I mean, I've always been a fan of the Ant-Man movies. I've always thought that they were the little engines that could. I still think the first Ant-Man is criminally underrated as far as its rating within the overall Infinity Saga. And I think Ant-Man and the Wasp, while not as good, is still very entertaining and not near, and is also kind of equally slept upon. I think that movie's a lot better than people give it credit for. So yeah, I'm interested to see where they take it, and especially since it seems like it's gearing up to be a much bigger and more substantially important role in the MCU than kind of any of the Ant-Man movies that came beforehand. So now the next big thing, obviously, we have the first Disney Plus TV series of Phase 5. Secret Invasion, which will be being released sometime in the spring of 2023 between Ant-Man Quantumania and Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 3. I also wanted to give a shout out to the showrunner of this Disney Plus show, who is Kyle Bradstreet, who I actually got to meet at SUNY Wide Film Festival back in, I want to say this was fall of 2017. Who I got to meet. He was previously a writer and producer on Mr. Robot. He will be show running this show. And obviously the big thing about this is how Nick Fury and Talos of the Skrulls will be having to kind of take down a secret subsect of Skrulls that are attempting to kind of take over the world in obviously the adaptation of the verse. Obviously, they're not going to be able to do the full adaptation considering how they already changed the chronology of the Skrulls in Captain Marvel, showing them as being in more of a good light rather than what they were in the comics. But this is the big thing about this is we're finally getting Sam Jackson back in some capacity into the MCU. He really hasn't been a main figure in the MCU. I think since Age of Ultron was the last movie where he actually had a big part. Obviously, obviously he was in Far From Home, but that was just revealed to be Talos in disguise. So we can assume that Nick Fury's been off-world for a significant amount of time. If the Nick Fury that we were spending time with in the first two phases was even actually Nick Fury, and they wasn't just in space. So I don't know, Luke, what was your kind of anticipation level for Secret Invasion? Just as far as being compared to the other Disney Plus shows, which for me at least have been pretty hit or miss so far.
Well, I'm not familiar with the Secret Invasion storyline. I know there's Skrulls, and it turns out, he was a Skrull the whole time.
Pretty much the whole thing in a nutshell is that it's pretty much just, okay, Skrulls are infiltrating the Earth and they're taking over the form of all the heroes. And the whole thing is the heroes don't know who amongst them is a Skrull and who isn't. And it causes a big divide. And the whole big impetus is that as far as kind of where it leaves off is when it leaves off, it's Norman Osborn that actually kills the Skrull Queen, Varanki. And that's what kind of leads to the what's it called? That's what kind of leads to the oh my god, what's it called? The Dark Avengers reign with Norman Osborn taking over S.H.I.E.L.D. and starting up the Dark Avengers and everything. That's really in a nutshell.
Yeah, well, Emilia Clarke is in it, and that's more than enough motivation for me to watch it.
She's not the only one. Yeah. Olivia Coleman, I believe that from what they showed at Comic-Con, it was that she will be, the previous rumor was that Olivia Coleman would be playing Varanki, the Skrull Queen. Now it's stating that she might be playing somebody else, an ally of Nick Fury's. That doesn't necessarily mean that she won't be playing Varanki, considering that obviously Fury and the Skrulls are allies in this continuity. We obviously know that Ben Mendelsohn will be back. Don Cheadle's confirmed to be in the show. Martin Freeman is Everett Ross. Kobe Smulders, obviously, they famously said that she would be back and she would be playing a big part. Some of the other cast members, Emilia Clarke, the rumor was that she would be playing Abigail Brand, the head of S.W.O.R.D. What's it called? And then the two big ones, obviously, Christopher McDonald will be in the show. I think he'll be playing some form of villainous capacity. I know that Dermot Mulroney will be appearing in the film as the new president. And famously, the big one is the rumors that Kingsley Ben-Adir, famously who portrayed Malcolm X in in One Night in Miami previously, will be playing the main villain in the show, potentially the Super Skrull, who is kind of a Skrull that kind of is an amalgamation of a lot of different familiar Marvel characters' powers, who ends up being a pretty big threat. So that's Secret Invasion. That'll be airing in the spring of 2023. And the next big one, this one just hits. It's another one. So Black Panther was one that hit close to home that I wasn't expecting to. This is one where it's this is just, it's a homecoming. It's a send-off. It's so many different things in one. Obviously, Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 3. This film has just been through hell and back. I think this was originally back before the pandemic even, and obviously before the James Gunn thing. This was originally set to be released in, I believe, Guardians of the Galaxy 3 way back when was supposed to be set in between Infinity War and Endgame, I want to say. I think the original film was supposed to be released in either 2019 or 2020. Then the James Gunn firing happens. They push it back because they're scrambling to find another director. They get him back. Then the pandemic happens. Then they delay this. So this film has gone through a lot of different things. It's obviously bouncing off of not just the first two Guardians of the Galaxy films, but everything that the Guardians of the Galaxy went through in the first two Avengers movies. Obviously, they played a pretty significant role in Infinity War, and then obviously Nebula, and Rocket played a pretty big role as far as helping out the Avengers save everyone in Endgame. And then we got a brief glimpse of them earlier this month with Thor: Love and Thunder, but they basically equated to glorified cameos. They didn't really play a major part in the film itself. And all I'm going to say for this is that I didn't get a chance to watch the trailer or the footage, but I listened to the song that they played, And it's just, I can already tell that this one's going to be a tearjerker. Like this one, they've been hinting that again. The big thing that they've been saying is that this is going to be a goodbye for a lot of these characters, which leads me to assume that they're going to kill off a lot of these characters. I don't expect to see Chris Pratt in any of these movies after this one. I definitely don't expect to see Dave Bautista as Drax in any of these movies after this one. I can assume that we're saying goodbye to Zoe Saldana. Palm Clementieff and Karen Gillan, not quite sure. Rocket Raccoon and Groot, they can always keep around in some capacity. But just the fact that James Gunn has been such a huge part of the Marvel-verse and kind of establishing it where it is today and becoming just kind of such a singular creative voice within the Marvel Cinematic Universe. He's constantly being hailed as being like, okay, the Guardians of the Galaxy movies are the only movies that don't feel like Marvel movies per se. They feel like his movies. And the fact that they brought him back just so that he could say goodbye to these characters that he had such a, that he had such a crucial time with. Man, I'm already getting choked up talking about it. Like, what are your thoughts on Guardians of the Galaxy 3?
Yeah, I think this is the one that collectively I see everyone online. This is their most anticipated one, and I think this is the most that they have faith in because they know how good the first two Guardians movies are. They know how good James Gunn is. He did the Suicide Squad and Peacemaker in between, so he's definitely not slowed down. And yeah, like you said, Guardians movies do stick out in the MCU as more unique. The bit of footage I saw wasn't much, but there was like a baby Rocket flashback, it seems. So I'm still very convinced that Rocket is dying, which is a shame because he's one of my favorite MCU characters. But yeah, Adam Warlock, of course.
Right, yeah.
He's in it.
Yeah, those are the big things. Obviously, we get our first look at Will Poulter as Adam Warlock. We get confirmation that Chuck Wuji from what's it called, from Peacemaker will be portraying the villain, the High Evolutionary. And oh man, what other ones were there? Oh, and obviously, probably my favorite bit of casting announcement. They said that Maria Baklova of Borat 2 would be in the film, and they officially announced at Comic-Con that she would be not only voicing but doing the motion capture for Cosmo the Space Dog, which I'm like, just more quality trolling from these comedic directors. I'm 50-50 when it comes to Marvel trolling people, but that one I'm just like, okay, that's just pure gold right there, Only big thing obviously is, from what I heard from the footage, is obviously it seems like Star-Lord's going to be having a bit of a crisis with dealing with kind of this new variation, this new version of Gamora that we're going to deal with, obviously, as we know, because our version of Gamora that we knew for the first two films is still definitively dead, as having been killed by Thanos in Infinity War. But my biggest thing is that, like, this is one of the few, the thing that's so interesting for me is that this is going to be one of the few Marvel third films that is actually a conclusion. We talked a lot in the past about how the trilogies that we've gotten in Marvel up until this point are not really trilogies because they don't really end. Obviously, we got 3 Iron Man movies, but then Iron Man's arc continued across 3 more movies that we saw him in, 4 if you count his part in Homecoming. Captain America had 3 movies, but he still got another 2 movies after the fact, in addition to appearing in the Avengers movies in between. Thor, they didn't even bother to really give him a wrap up in Ragnarok because we just got a 4th Thor film. Same thing with Ant-Man, same thing with Spider-Man. Obviously, even though like No Way Home was a good cap off to Tom Holland's arc of Spider-Man throughout the MCU so far, we still know that we'll still have him in the MCU going forward in some capacity. But this is the first third film that we're going to get that really is a send-off and a goodbye to these characters. Whether it's to all of them, we don't know, but like to at least this version, like this is going to be, it's going to be a big one to say the least. So I'm looking forward to it. It's my most anticipated out of this whole batch. And I know that kind of takes the air out of the next couple of movies that we're going to be doing, but I figure we'll probably just speed through these next couple because, again, there's only so much that we know about these next couple. And also, I want to kind of get to the speculation as far as what we're going to do next. So the big thing that was announced after Guardians 3 is that we're getting 2 Disney Plus shows in the summer of 2023 before the Marvels. We're getting Echo, the spinoff for Hawkeye, which Charlie Cox and Vincent D'Onofrio are both confirmed to appear in, as well as the 2nd season of Loki. I'm still not sure how they're going, what they're going to do with season 2 of Loki, as far as, obviously, I can assume that that'll probably continue the Kang arc as far as building up to Kang Dynasty. But that one they'll probably have a lot more fun with as well. What's it called? And then obviously, just a further confirmation that we're getting the Marvels in July of 2023, which I can't say I'm looking forward to that one as well. The Captain Marvel's not one that I hated nearly as much as everybody else did, but it's still kind of one of the weaker MCU films. And now this one's being directed by the director of Candyman. We're getting Miss Marvel from the Miss Marvel show, which I didn't watch because it didn't look good at all.
Well, let me
And
tell you, Miss Marvel is the character is delightful. The show,
okay,
half of it is really good, half of it is not as good.
which
But
half is good?
the
May I
the
ask?
first half,
Okay.
then it goes a little MCU-y.
I can't say that that I haven't watched it because I was I work from home now. So what happened was that I was doing some work and then my housemate was watching in the background. So I caught a little bit of it in the background, and every time I looked up, I'm like, no, this is not something that I need to be watching or would probably get any sort of enjoyment out of at all. But that's good to know at the very least. But for me, the biggest takeaway is that the villain of the movie is going to be portrayed by Zaw Ashton, who was famously like the worst part about this Netflix movie that came out a couple of years ago, Velvet Buzzsaw, with Jake Gyllenhaal, which is an awful movie. It's almost one of those so bad it's good movies, almost, but she's pretty terrible in it, and I can't imagine that she's going to be good that much better in this. So the Marvels, I can probably say, is one that I am not really looking that forward to. Then the fall of 2023 is where we get really interesting. There were a couple movies that have been announced, obviously, that had yet to get release dates. Blade, Fantastic Four, and Blade has officially been announced as being released in November of 2023. They're going back to releasing 4 films. 2023 will be interesting because this will be another year where they release 4 films. Famously, they said that they were going to try and go back to 3 films in order to try to mitigate the amount of Marvel content. After 2021 was the first year where they released 4 Marvel films within one calendar year. Obviously, Black Widow in July, Shang-Chi in September, Eternals in November, and then Spider-Man No Way Home 1 month later in December. But 2023, they're going to be releasing Blade that November. We still don't know that much about it other than the fact that we know it's being directed by Bassam Tariq and that their Anthony Starr of The Boys fame is being rumored to play Dracula. What's your anticipation level on Blade so far? Because it's been one of those ones where it's like, I feel like it's pretty lukewarm. Not a lot of people are talking about it just in general. A lot of people are curious to see as far as how they pull it off, considering that this will really be Marvel's first foray into doing something like pretty like dark, quote unquote,
Yeah, I've seen the first 2 Blades. I'm not exactly big on them, but I know he's still a cool character, and Mahershala Ali is an even cooler actor. If they do somehow get Anthony Starr to play Dracula, my excitement level will shoot way up. But if they actually try to do something dark, that will be exciting for me. But it's Marvel. We never really know until we get there.
Exactly. My skepticism that I'll say with Blade is I don't think that Marvel will do it poorly. I don't. But it's 2 things. One, Marvel has never done a strict rated R property before. They've dabbled on the dark side, but again, their stuff usually still tends to be pretty as kid-friendly as possible. Moon Knight got a little bit interesting, a little bit daring, a little bit experimental, especially if Blade is going to be the next installment, if they are going to build up to eventually doing the Midnight Suns, since obviously we know Daredevil's coming back in capacity. We have Moon Knight, we have Blade, and we can assume the Ghost Rider's on the horizon somewhere. They've been hinting at that pretty heavily. Whether it does end up being Ryan Gosling or whether they end up bringing back Robbie Reyes from Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D., who knows? But they've never necessarily done rated R yet. So naturally, I'm curious to see how that would play out. But my biggest thing, obviously, is that, look, of all of the parts that they brought back and recast from the past, obviously, famously, they brought back Andrew and Toby for No Way Home. Wesley Snipes' portrayal as Blade is so unbelievably iconic. Like, it's arguably the first Blade is arguably the first, forget good, like great Marvel Comics film. It predates X-Men. People still give X-Men credit for kicking off the superhero wave, but it really starts 2 years earlier with Blade. And my whole thing is that what Wesley brought to that part is Blade is always interesting in the sense of he's this very regal character that operates on such this down and dirty street level, like he what's it called? He's obviously known for like having this really down and dirty fighting style with him, and Wesley was able to fuse the 2 of those so well. And as brilliant an actor as Mahershala Ali is, he's probably one of the best working actors we have right now. I don't necessarily know if that's something that he can break. As villainous and as awesome as he was in those first 7 episodes of Luke Cage, the thing that I think killed it for him was the fact that he was a little bit too regal for anything, and I don't know if he's going to be able to bring the kind of hard down and dirty edge that Blade will. I could be talking out of my ass completely, but it's just the fact that I'm just so used to, since Wesley was so canonical in that variation of Blade, I just don't see if Marvel's going to do it if the MCU, I should say, is going to do it as much justice as the character deserves. But like I said, we still have a year to go roughly before we see the character in the big screen. The first trailer could come out and I could be completely talking out of my ass. But again, this is another first time director who's getting his big name, big feature film debut. I haven't seen his first indie film that he put out earlier this year, but who knows? We shall see. Then we cut ahead. We're going to wrap up 2023 with Ironheart, which will obviously be spinning off from Black Panther 2. And then the recently retitled Agatha Coven of Chaos, famously from Agatha House of Harkness. I don't know. Is there really any anticipation for Agatha as far as going forward? Like, I don't know. Like, I felt like she was pretty one and done for WandaVision. I don't necessarily know what bringing her back is going to really add, especially since we know that we're not going to be seeing Doctor Strange for a while, since he obviously went to the dark dimension with Clea at the end of Multiverse of Madness, and obviously WandaVision was clearly setting up for Multiverse of Madness. I don't know. I don't feel like there's really that much anticipation for it. So that kind of just feels like another like holiday fun time dump like Hawkeye was. Obviously it's Marvel, so there'll be something in there that builds to something, but I don't know. That's just the one where it's like, yeah, I don't really know what they're doing here other than, okay, Agatha was super popular because of WandaVision and that, that stupid song that she sang. So
yeah, it's pretty, I think, everyone's bottom anticipation list. Yeah. But yeah, it's whatever. Like, it's, let's just go to the next one.
Let's just go to the next one. Exactly. So we cut to 2024, and this is where things really start to pick up. Like, this is where we only got 3 announcements for stuff coming out in 2024. We can assume that there'll be more stuff that's announced at D23, but this is the big one where we're kicking it off. They had hinted at it for months. They'd been rumored for it. Fans have been clamoring for it for years. They've been asking for it since 2018, 2019, when the Netflix shows were all canceled, when Disney was doing the first big acquisition and bringing them over. They're like, okay, are we ever going to get these guys interacting with the big dogs? Are we going to get them? And our prayers were finally answered in 2021 when we had D'Onofrio's Kingpin appearing in the finale of Hawkeye and Charlie Cox's Daredevil appearing briefly in Spider-Man No Way Home. And now it's officially been revealed that Daredevil Born Again will be airing in spring of 2024 with a whopping 18 episodes to boot. Like, I mean, are they just that confident? Like, I don't know. That's something that could equally be as awesome as it is worrisome, because they've never done a series with that many episodes. The most they've done, like I said, is 9. She-Hulk was originally going to be 10, and they cut that down to 9. So, I mean, I don't know. What's your thoughts on that, Luke?
The 18 is weirdly large. I think now the norm has gone to really the norm is like 8 1-hour episodes. You can have like, I guess, 12 or 13, 15 minute, I think. But 18 leads me to believe they will be like 30 to 40.
Right. I can't assume these are going to be like the Netflix episodes where they're like super, like those episodes were like 50 to 60 minutes each and they were densely packed. So
I still need to watch Daredevil, so my
heavily
excitement for this is not as high as many others. But I have time to catch up until 24.
Surprisingly enough, I would say that my anticipation level for this is quite different. I would say that my anticipation for the show itself is lukewarm, because that Netflix series was just so unbelievably amazing. And so again, it's the same kind of worry that I have with Blade and Deadpool 3 and a lot of the other rated R properties that they're going to do, is that Disney does not do well with rated R. And that when you watch it, you're going to see that Netflix Daredevil series it's rated R or whatever the TV equivalent of that is for a reason. Like, they go hard in that show. That show gets bloody. The 3rd episode, they got a dude smashing his head through an ice pick on the wall, and crushing a dude's heads with bowling balls and shit. Like, you got a dude who gets his head smashed in a car. Like, it's bloody, that show. So like that's my anticipation for the show is more so curious than really anticipating this, because I don't necessarily know how much justice they're going to do the Netflix show. I also don't know, like, in what capacity they're really going to like kind of reference the Netflix show, mostly because they're probably going to do more so what Gunn did with the Suicide Squad, where they're like, okay, it's the same characters, obviously, with the same actors playing them, but I don't know how much they're going to reference the old stuff. I don't know how much that stuff is really going to play in and how important that's going to be story-wise, you know? And it's more so going to be like a soft reboot that just happens to feature the old characters as opposed to it. I don't want them to do like any multiverse hopping with those characters just because that wouldn't really make sense, you know? They kind of got away with it with just kind of quickly inserting those characters into the previous Marvel properties that we said, and now they're going to get their own stuff. You know, I'm glad they're back. I'm like, cool, we got the Netflix stuff. That's what it was. Now we have the Disney stuff. Let's just leave it be. We don't need to explicitly reference all the old stuff. And the only other thing that I know, aside from obviously Cox and D'Onofrio coming back to reprise their roles and the fact that it's going to be 18 episodes long, Eldon Hansen is negotiating to come back as Foggy Nelson. But the biggest thing is that they've recast Elektra. I don't think this one has really surfaced yet, but I read a news article saying that they had recast Elodie Young, who portrayed Elektra in the Marvel shows, with Isa Gonzalez, which I think is going to be really interesting to see.
Ambulance.
Yes, let's bring it. So the only thing, obviously, they famously rumored that when they brought in Charlie Cox in both She-Hulk and Echo, that he would be searching for a former ally of his that was rumored to be Jessica Jones. And then there's also the rumor that we'll see if they end up bringing back Luke Cage, Iron Fist, and and the Punisher in some capacity as well. You know, I mean, if they're building towards Midnight Suns, I can see the Punisher having a role. Luke Cage and Iron Fist obviously are the heroes for hire. That could be a Disney Plus show. I can see them bringing in Iron Fist into whatever Shang-Chi property they do next. It's Iron Fist and Shang-Chi have clashed and been allies / enemies on different occasions. So again, this opens up a whole route for them to give the fans, to fulfill the fans' wishes and bring all the Netflix heroes in. As far as what capacity they'll do them, who knows? But let's cut to the next big two project, the big projects that are going to be wrapping up Phase 5 in the middle of 2024. The recently titled Captain America New World Order, which will be released. That'll be in the Marvel big May slot as they've kind of come to as they've laid claim to for the past 10 years. That first weekend of May slot, May of 2024, Captain America New World Order, which has been announced to be directed by Julius Ona, the director of what's it called? Oh my god, what was it? Not the Cloverfield one, the one that was supposed to be Cloverfield and then it wasn't. Not God Particle. I can't remember the name of it, but the zombie one, the Nazi zombie one from the end of 2018.
Overlord.
Overlord. That's it. Yes. The director of Overlord. Thank you for that. Can't believe I just brain farted on that. Who will be directing Captain America New World Order, and then obviously the Thunderbolts in 2024. So Captain America New World Order. That's an interesting one. I'm not familiar with the comic series that it is based off of, but the only thing that I can say is that I'm glad that this one's being a movie, because I have said that of all the plus shows that we got in 2021, Falcon and Winter Soldier was the one that suffered the most, I think, from being a miniseries. In addition to kind of the story elements not being that interesting, them having to reshoot the whole third act because of, the COVID subplot that they were originally going to have that they had to scrap because of COVID, and just the fact that it was kind of a rinse and repeat. It kind of like had Sam wondering whether he should be Captain America. I thought there were a lot of kind of unnecessary supporting characters that didn't really add much. I thought the antagonists were kind of lackluster, especially since we got two awesome antagonists in Walker and Zemo. So the only thing I can really say about New World Order is I hope that it's an improvement over Falcon and the Winter Soldier. I don't really know what your anticipation level is going. Like, what did you think of Falcon and the Winter Soldier?
I thought it was okay, but you know what? They made Latvia canon to the MCU.
They did.
So I
did.
will always remember that, although they shot it all in Prague. But it's close enough, I guess. I think that one should have.
You win some, you lose some.
Yeah, that one would have worked best as a movie, like you said.
Yes.
Out of all Disney Plus shows. So now that we are getting a movie and we can focus on Sam, we've learned and he's proven why he should be Captain America through the show. So I think it's time that he gets that stage. I think people are really gonna buy into it, but we really don't know anything about it. So
yes. What's it called? Yeah, I agree. For me, obviously the big thing that I'm looking forward to from this that was announced is Thunderbolts, which it's like, again, they had rumored it that it was another thing in addition to Young Avengers where it's like, okay, they're dropping all these guys in. We obviously Ghost, from Quantumania, who kind of went away, and they were like, okay, they left her alive for some reason, Taskmaster and Black Widow, Walker, and then bringing back Zemo in Falcon and Winter Soldier. The rumor that this will be kind of the team that Yelena will join before she eventually joins whatever iteration of the Avengers will be going up against Kang in Kang Dynasty. And now the latest edition, obviously, the rumor was originally that it was going to be Red Hulk, but since we unfortunately lost William Hurt earlier this year, unfortunately, it looks like Thunderbolt Ross will be taking his leave from the MCU, obviously. So now, famously, they're bringing back Tim Roth as the Abomination, who has been being held in captivity since 2008, since the Incredible Hulk. The rumors that he'll be joining the team, and the rumors that they'll be being led by Bucky, headed up obviously by Julia Louis-Dreyfus's character, the Madam Hydra character. This movie's being directed by Jake Schreier. And as far as kind of being Marvel's answer to the Suicide Squad, I feel like I would have been looking forward to this more if the Suicide Squad hadn't come out last year, and if that movie hadn't been as good and as refreshing and as awesome as it was. So in a strange way, as much as I'm looking forward to Thunderbolts, I like that structure. Again, I love the idea of, when you get a bunch of villains together and have them carry out a bunch of black ops missions for the government. I feel like, again, it's going to be the first instance where Marvel's actually going to be playing second fiddle to DC, since DC kind of beat them to the punch, and I think did it so much better than they could have possibly ever did. Like, the Suicide Squad last year was my favorite movie of last year. It was everything I could have wanted from that sort of a structure, that sort of a setup, that sort of a team. And again, it's just, we know we're not going to get a lot of that awesome craziness in the Thunderbolts. Like, we're not going to have villains dying left and right. We're not going to have the crazy bloody action. We're not going to have as much cursing, We're not going to have just as much vicious, crazy surprise. A lot of that had to do with James Gunn's stylings and sensibilities. But, I don't know. Like, what's really your anticipation level for the Thunderbolts?
I'm just excited to see what team it is. There's plenty of options out there. I saw some fan art where even had Deadpool in there.
Right.
Which,
right.
I doubt it, but you never know. They might introduce him back in like that. I think whatever cast you do get, if they have good chemistry, that's going to be enough to carry a lot of the movie. Of course, it will be comedic. It should be this ragtag band of misfits, you could say. But yeah, I'm just looking forward to it. It's like a big team up movie without being too big.
Right. You know me. Again, the team up movies are always my favorite, consistently Marvel. My whole thing is I'm like, look, as mediocre as these last couple of Marvel properties have been, if it's a team up movie, it's all like, I'm talking like a decent team, more than like 2 people. I'm talking like at least between like 4 and 6 people. If it's that big of a team up movie, I'm usually going to be willing to give it more of the benefit of the doubt than the solo movies, since again, we know that Marvel specializes in putting together some great actors that have some great chemistry. And again, if it's the lineup that I'm thinking of, it's a pretty decently batch of actors. Taskmaster really doesn't say much, and I really don't think they gave Olga Kurilenko that much to do. I feel like anything, she would be almost like the Black Noir of their team, where she's just there to be the silent killer. Again, Florence Pugh as Yelena, Wyatt Russell as John Walker, Daniel Bruhl as Zemo. What's it called? Hannah John Kamen as the Ghost was okay in Ant-Man and the Wasp, but she obviously has room to improve. I still think she's a good enough actress, obviously, if that's the capacity that they continually utilize Bucky. My big thing, obviously, is kind of seeing how they're going to bring back Tim Roth into the MCU again. He hasn't been in the MCU since 2008. It's still so weird because that Incredible Hulk movie still is one of those ones that wasn't technically made by Marvel for the MCU. It was kind of almost like retconned in after the fact. It was made by Universal as like a completely separate property just so that they could retain the rights to the Incredible Hulk. So kind of how they've been able to continue to incorporate some of those elements back into the MCU, I think has been super fascinating. And I just thought it was so funny how they just like randomly threw Abomination into the beginning of Shang-Chi, and now we'll actually get to see him back, and like Tim Roth actually back like acting in the MCU. I just think that's going to be fascinating.
Well, he's in She-Hulk.
Well, that's what I'm saying, like in She-Hulk. Yeah. So, and then seeing, obviously, because that's obviously going to translate directly into Thunderbolts. So Thunderbolts is capping off Phase 5. That's really the last of like kind of the Marvel properties that we know a lot about. Before we get into the Phase 6 topics, there was something that I just saw. So it's officially been confirmed for D23 that Marvel Studios still has 8 more projects that have yet to be announced at D23. Some of those rumored
sounds about right.
Yeah, so a Deadpool 3, Shang-Chi 2, the Nova series, if they end up announcing the 4th Spider-Man. Armor Wars had yet to be announced. That was the only one that was announced back in 2019 that is yet to get a release date. If they do the Wakanda spin-off series, we also know that they're going to do a spin-off 10 Rings series for Shang-Chi as well. So we'll see obviously what other news and casting, but there's going to be a lot more that's going to be announced at D23. But let's start getting into speculation territory, because the only thing that Kevin Feige announced for Phase 6 was that Fantastic Four will be kicking off Phase 6 in November of 2024, which is when that'll be released. And then obviously that the Phase 6 and the entire multiversal saga, as a result, will be capped off in 2025 with the release of not one but 2 Avengers movies in one calendar year. Avengers Kang Dynasty in May of 2025, and then Avengers Secret Wars in, I believe it was July of November of 2025. Thank
May
you.
and July. That would
May
be
and July.
something.
That would be something if they were to do that. But no, I think that gap of May and November is good, especially since they're going to, again, 2 Avengers movies that are probably going to be not quite 2, but on the level of Infinity War and Endgame as far as just how many characters are going to be in this movie and how many characters are going to be incorporated. So obviously, the big thing that was announced recently is that Destin Daniel Cretton will be directing Avengers Kang Dynasty. What's your thoughts on that? Because I'm skeptical, to say the least.
I'm a little iffy.
Yeah.
I think it's extremely safe. That's my biggest issue with it. And I wasn't huge on Shang-Chi. I thought it was okay. I thought it was a bit like we threw every MCU movie to an AI and this is what came out. So I really wanted them to do something like crazy out of the box director-wise, like Michael Bay for Secret Wars. Like, why not?
Right.
Who says no?
And I mean, look, it's not completely out of the question. They obviously got the Russos to do Infinity War and Endgame after Joss Whedon left Marvel because of what they were able to bring to Civil War. But Civil War was just such a kind of out of the box and refreshing and new kind of a thing. It was such an expansion on, okay, we knew that they could do like kind of the slick action movie with Winter Soldier, but then with Civil War, they proved they're like, okay, now that they're really capable of handling an ensemble cast on this level. And with Kang Dynasty, at least, I think there's a reason why they announced that he was only going to be doing Kang Dynasty and not Secret Wars, because I think that whatever Kang Dynasty is going to bring, I think Secret Wars is going to be bigger in whatever capacity. And I think there's a reason also as well. I have a few theories about this as well. But yeah, I'm not. My thing with Shang-Chi is it felt too fragmented of a movie. It didn't feel like a consistent overall movie. You know, it's really strange because even though Eternals was the worst off movie, Eternals still felt more cohesive and more like one uniform vision. Shang-Chi felt like it was 2 different movies smashed together, like From Dusk Till Dawn, but it didn't really have that seamless transition where it went from being kind of like this faux Jackie Chan kung fu movie to turn it into like a Disney theme park attraction in the second half that just got away from, I thought, a pretty decently compelling villain for the most part, and just kind of replace it with a giant CG mess blob. And I'm like, okay, that doesn't give me a whole lot of confidence for Kang Dynasty, especially since that's going to be the one where it's like, okay, however we're going to be building up Kang throughout these phases, that's when we're going to get him in like his full capacity, whatever that ends up being, you know, as far as all the crazy time travel, multiverse hopping, quantum realm, whatever. So I can't say that's one that's got me too super pumped. The one that I am obviously excited for is Secret Wars, because I read the Secret Wars 2015 comic book line. If they pull off even that's another one where it's like, if they pull off half the stuff they did in that comic universe, it's going to be nuts, where obviously incursion of sorts that happens where you have 2 different Marvel universes. In the case of the comics case, the 616, which is the main Marvel version, the Earth 1610, which is the ultimate Marvel universe, smashed together. And then Dr. Doom kind of uses Molecule Man in order to reforge reality into his own universe that he rules over, called Battle World. And so I assume that they'll be adapting that in some capacity as well. You'll have Mr. Fantastic versus Mr. Fantastic, a bunch of different heroes obviously in there. So that's kind of why I'm saying that they're probably going to set up Dr. Doom and Black Panther before they bring him in, if they bring him in for Fantastic Four, because my theory is that they do Kang Dynasty, obviously that's Kang, and Secret Wars is Dr. Doom. And that's kind of how they wrap up the whole multiversal saga as far as that goes. Now, for Fantastic Four, the big thing that's kind of known going into this movie is the fact that John Watts was originally set to direct this film in his next installment after No Way Home, and then he stepped down from this, stating that he wanted to take a break from directing superhero films. And honestly, I don't blame him, considering just what a mess the relationship between Sony and Marvel has been. The fact that between the constant juggling of the character, oh, is he Sony, is he Marvel, oh, are they even going to make the 3rd Spider-Man, after Far From Home came out, all of that stuff. And he's kind of been just like the middleman stuck in the middle. You know, the fact that No Way Home was as big of a success as it was, you know, he's probably just like, okay, phew, pulled that off. Great. All the secrecies that they had to keep with all the castings, with the villains, and then Toby and Andrew being in the movie. He's like, I just want to break from all that. So I don't blame him. So the two things that I want to know from you, Luke, are who do you think they get to direct Fantastic Four? And do you have any and do you have any like kind of maybe people who you want to see play the Fantastic Four? People who you think may be casting? Obviously, the rumor is that Jason Segel will be appearing in She-Hulk as well, and that he will be portraying Ben Grimm, aka the Thing. What's it called? So what's your take on that?
I really did think that they would bring out the cast and director at Comic-Con. Maybe they can still do that at D23.
Yeah, I'm assuming they'll save that one for D23. I think that's going to be their big cornerstone of D23.
Yeah, I don't think it's going to be Krasinski. I really don't.
I agree.
I think that was just a one-off for the fans to shut them up once and for all.
Yeah.
I think I see a different fan cast every day. Each one has something that I like. Some actors that I don't know too much about, like the guy from You.
Yeah, the two big ones I've been seeing. The guy from You, Penn Badgley as Mr. Fantastic, which I'm 50-50 on that. I haven't seen You. I haven't seen a whole lot of stuff that he's been in, so I can't really say if he'd do well. Again, Marvel's usually pretty spot on with casting, but I mean, Jason Segel is the thing I like. I think that could be interesting and a different take on Ben Grimm that can actually work on like Josh Trank's version of casting Jamie Bell as the Thing. It's like, okay, yeah, Ben Grimm, who's one of the most forceful presences in the MCU, and we're going to cast one of the most minuscule actors who has not been known to give any sort of grand over-the-top performances for that part. Yeah, that's a genius idea right there. And the other one that I've heard a lot about is obviously a lot of my close friends have been saying, oh, Zac Efron as the Human Torch, Zac Efron as the Human Torch. I've been hearing a decent amount online that Joe Keery from Stranger Things is going to be playing Human Torch. The only reason why I don't necessarily buy into that is because I don't know what if between the shooting schedules for Fantastic Four and the shooting schedules for Stranger Things 5th and final season, which is also set to premiere sometime in 2024, if those two shooting schedules are going to overlap and allow him to be in both properties as well. So obviously the only one that there doesn't seem to be a definitive casting or any sort of fan casting for is Susan Storm, the Invisible Woman. So I don't know. So you tell me, like, forget all the rumor castings or anything like that. If you had to pick 4 actors off the top of your head to play the Fantastic Four, who would you pick?
I don't know, but I think Dockery Montgomery for the fire guy.
Johnny Storm. Okay, yeah. Another Stranger Things alumni.
Yeah. My actor knowledge is suffering here.
Don't worry. Give me the hints, and I'll fill it out for you.
I don't know. I really don't.
Yeah, I heard a rumor
I've seen Alan Ritchson for Ben Grimm.
Ritchson for Ben Grimm. That could work. That would be good. I would like to see that. I think he would work really well for that part.
But yeah, whatever, whoever they'll get, they'll be good. Yeah. Like Marvel are always on point
Marvel's
with their
always
casting.
Spot on with their casting. Yeah, I mean, my ideal version of the Fantastic Four, I've had this fan casting for years, like back. I think I originally did this fan casting back in 2015, possibly before this. I've had this for years. I think it would work out so well. I mean, obviously, again, if they do Jason Segel or Alan Ritchson, they're probably going to do that. But I mean, we already saw them together. They've already worked together in not only one, but 2 Star Wars properties now, which is Ewan McGregor and Joel Edgerton as Mr. Fantastic and Ben Grimm, aka The Thing. Zac Efron as Johnny Storm, the Human Torch. It's a perfect casting, so why not do it, even if he is a little bit on the older side? And then my ideal version of the Invisible Woman, it was originally going to be Charlize Theron, but she's already in the MCU now playing Clea. So my version for my perfect Invisible Woman / Sue Storm would be Julia Stiles, who I think is an incredible actress, super underrated, great in the Jason Bourne movies is Nikki, great in 10 Things I Hate About You. Her brief part that she has in Silver Linings Playbook, I think that she would be a fantastic, pun intended, Susan Storm / Invisible Woman. And then as for Doctor Doom, more than likely they're going to get Giancarlo Esposito. If they could just fulfill both of our dreams and get Mads Mikkelsen in there, who again was criminally wasted as the villain in that first Doctor Strange film, as far as kind of the one-off. But for the most part, that's it. That's our review and coverage of pretty much all the announcements from D23. From Comic-Con. There'll probably be more announced at D23. We'll see what else is revealed online over the next couple of coming weeks. Obviously, hopefully we'll get something X-Men related as well. That was the other thing that I meant to comment on. They haven't announced anything X-Men related yet. We'll see. Real quick before we get out of here, if you had to pick one guy to play the new Wolverine, I've heard rumors of Taron Egerton, Carl Urban, which I'm like, oh my god, just like to do Carl Urban, is that like that's perfect casting right there.
Well, I love me some Kingsman, so Taron Egerton it would have to be.
Yeah, I don't know. Taron Egerton for me, he's still got like the boyish look to him. He hasn't really evolved into like, you know, kind of the gruff, tough exterior that would be needed for Wolverine. But that was it. That was our review, our coverage of all the Marvel announcements from Comic-Con. Let us know your thoughts in the comments below. Let us know if we missed anything. Let us know what your most anticipated Marvel project coming out that was announced at Comic-Con. Let us know what you are going to theorize as far as what will be announced at D23. Luke, it was great having you on as always. Where can the good people follow you on the interwebs?
They can follow me on Instagram and Letterboxd at Luke Reviews. I'm usually easy to find. So, yeah, those two places.
And of course, you can follow me at Movie Nerd Reviews across all platforms. Be sure to follow the official Talkin TV podcast across all platforms. Be sure to subscribe to us if you're watching us on YouTube. Follow us if you're listening to us on Twitch. And as always, people, 12 seasons in a short film, and watch more fucking movies. We'll see you guys next time.